Welcome to the Honest Podcast with Olga Nesterova, where we meet incredible people and share stories that matter. Hello, and welcome to the Honest Podcast. My name is Olga Nesterova, and I'm your host. Today, we get to meet a very special guest. Daniel Dluzneski is a retired lieutenant with the United States Secret Service and former coordinator for emergency management, safety, and security for the Pinellas County Schools in Florida. Before we get to meet Daniel, let's explore his career highlights. Daniel Dluzneski is a retired lieutenant with the United States Secret Service, where he dedicated over 24 years working together with his dog Korak, protecting the president, vice president, and their families, starting with the Reagan era to Obama administration. Daniel is certified as a crime scene search technician. He also has worked as public affairs spokesperson and special operation officer at the White House, where he also guided historical tours. He obtained second bachelor's degree in history from the University of Maryland, University College, but that's not all. After his first official retirement, Daniel moved to Florida and became coordinator of emergency management, safety, and security at Pinellas County Schools. He observed, supervised, and coordinated over 100 active shooter school drills, standardized school emergency plans, and the way active shooter drills should be run. For over 4 years, he was solely in charge of the entire county, which means over 140 schools and 104,000 students. Daniel also became fire inspector in the state of Florida. As you see, we have a superstar. Please welcome Daniel Dluzneski. Hello, Dan. Welcome to the podcast. I'm so honored to talk to you today.
Olga, thanks so much for having me on. Really appreciate it. We're going to discuss about school safety and my background.
Absolutely. And your background is fascinating. And that's where I want to start, because then the advice you give us for school safety and our safety in general will be even more so appreciated, because even talking to you is so rare. So I'm so happy that our audience gets the chance to learn from you today. But first things first, can you perhaps share your story? How did you come to do what you did, working for 24 years for United States Secret Service?
Sure. I want to kind of make it, I call it the Reader's Digest story. We're trying to shorten it up a little bit here. I first started when I was very, when I say young, I was in my 20s. And I don't know how I heard about the job. There was no internet back then. I don't know if I remember someone telling me about it. I read a story about it, whatever. And I thought, okay, this fits my background. Let me go try. So I went down to Washington, D.C. and took the test and came back. I think this was in the early 80s. And I came back and they sent my paperwork back and said, your height must be in proportion to your weight. And I couldn't understand, because I thought, well, I'm in really good shape. What are they talking about? So one of these teachers had a red magic marker circling my height and my weight. And I'm thinking, did they think I'm overweight or something? So I sent it back, and it gets sent back again with this red magic marker, from a teacher, like I failed. Your height must be in proportion to your weight. And I'm like, what the heck? So somehow I found the phone number and I called them, and they said, oh no, for your height and your body type, you must be more than 12 pounds over. You're underweight. I couldn't, underweight. I was like, oh my God, you got to be kidding me. I thought, okay, hire me. I'll drink milkshakes and eat bananas. I'll gain the weight. No. Government, the whole, we have to stop. You can't continue to apply. So me, stupid Dan, instead of going to my doctor and saying, hey doc, fudge the numbers here and just put some white out and add about 12 pounds and I'll just make it up when I get there. Oh no, I go on this weight training program and my metabolism, it took me like a month to gain this weight. Okay, I'm all set. And I called them back up. I'm ready to go. I made the weight. And they go, oh, you just missed the class. Well, when's the next class? Oh, not for another year. I'm like, oh no. So I went and did other things. I went and worked for DHL, the Courier Express service. I worked for a warehouse. I drove a bus. I just did all the odd jobs just to, because I could find work. And then now I'm in my 30s and I'm like, I got to find a career. So I said, well, let me look at the age barrier here. And the age for the Secret Service, the maximum age was 34 and I was 32. I said, well, let me try again. So I tried again. and went through it flying colors, and actually enjoyed it better as I was older. I already had my degree. I went through the program. Now I'm the oldest, so I'm in with a bunch of kids who are 10 years younger than me, going through the same program, and they're complaining, and they're all. I said, look, I said, you guys haven't been out in the real world. I said, I've done that. I've all worked. So this is great. I loved it. Went through training and got on the job. And I think because I was older, my supervisors were basically the same age as me. So I got along with them very well. And they, liked me. And I got, I said I got ahead of other people. But I was, because of my education, because of my age and my maturity, I think they just trusted me more. So I was given positions that, I wouldn't probably have gotten when I was a younger person. I made K-9 with less than 3 years on the job, which was unprecedented because K-9 at the time was only given to very senior people. And I just had these great evaluations, and I got this great dog, and I had a blast. It was great. The only thing was the tremendous amount of pressure, because here's this animal. Unlike the military, their dogs, they stay in a kennel. They don't go home with the individual. Our dogs, they want that bond, so they went home with me. So I'm in charge of this dog. Yeah, I'm in charge of this dog 24 hours a day, who depends on me, and I'm working with him. So it was constant. So yes, they were like people, because people say, oh, what's the word that you use for them to attack? No, it doesn't work that way. It's not like a light switch, but they knew the light switch when it was time to work and when it was time to go home. We're at home. Now it's time to relax. And he was a great, great dog. He was a great dog. Unfortunately, he didn't work out real well on the job. After 4 or 5 years, he just decided, I don't want to do this anymore. And it was a struggle, because the Secret Service was either going to destroy him, send him somewhere else, send him to a university for study, whatever was going on. And fortunately, again, because of my reputation, they allowed me to keep him as a pet. So he lived till he was 13, just a great dog. I mean, I get very emotional about it, because they say like your children, and yeah, it is like your children. So, but yeah, I went through K-9, and I was allowed to go through crime scene search, like you see CSI on TV. I was in public affairs. I was a dispatcher. I had all these great opportunities, and it was nice. I was able to stay in Washington, D.C., so I didn't have to travel all over the country. And it was a great career. I started right at the end of Reagan's term, and I finished up in Obama's term. And then I came down here to Florida to retire. I got my 25 more years. I'm going to sit on a beach. Give me a beer. I'm done. Well, Olga, probably as you know, being an alpha personality and a control person, that lasted about 3 months. So I got to get a job. I can't sit around. You drive yourself crazy. And my ex-wife at the time, my wife at the time, she says, hey, go on the website of the school county website. I think there's a job there for you. And this job opened up, fit my resume. They were very impressed, and they hired me. I didn't know what I was getting into, really. Mm-hmm. I knew it was to protect children. I knew it was a safety and security job, but I really didn't know what my autonomy was and how much power I had and what I could do. So when I got on the job, they gave me this little desk, and they said, here you go, you're it. And it was just me. I had 100,000 students, 140 schools. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, people come to Florida to retire. There's no kids down here. Completely wrong. Very dense county. Everything from a very elite, I'll say white northern neighborhood. Southern neighborhood is more Black, Hispanic, Latino. A very diverse county. I'm very glad that I was involved in it. But again, it was solely just me. I had no secretaries, no help, no nothing. And they said, here you go. You have to keep the safety and security of all these 140 schools and all these students. I said, okay, I'll do it. And I hated to sit at a desk. And I wanted to make sure I went to every one of those schools. I did it. It took me a year, but I went to every one of those 140 schools and met with the principals. And I had a great team of people around me that didn't work for me. They worked in my division. And they were the ones in charge of the budget. so they could, put the classroom doors in, the fencing. They had the budget to do all the outer exterior stuff. And I work with the fire marshal at times to partner up and do these active shooter drills. So that was my main focus, is to get these people and these teachers and these students to focus in on something very simple. Don't believe in technology. All you had to do was keep your door closed and locked, turn the lights off, close the blinds, sit on the floor quietly, silence your phone, don't listen to any announcements, don't open the door. You're safe. Help is on the way. And that's what I preach today. Now, my problem is, and I think I've told you, I was talking to teachers and administrators, and most of them were like, Dan, our hands are tied. We got to listen to the school board. I have to listen to the superintendent. I like what you're saying, but I don't want to lose my job. So my main purpose now is to talk to parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and saying, look, talk to your children, find out what's going on in the schools, ask them directly. What happens during these emergency drills? What are you doing when there's a bad guy in the school? Do you stay in your room? Do you run out? Are you supposed to fight the individual? These are questions you need to ask your children, because if you hear a child say, oh no, we run out of the classroom, or oh no, we're told to throw things at the shooter or fight them, you're like, whoa, a red flag should go up immediately. Like, I don't want my child doing that. I've got a 17-year-old high school. I don't want him doing that. I don't care how big or small he is. So my main focus now is to stay away from these programs that are out there and concentrate on just keeping it simple, keep the door locked during classroom time. Because a lot of these videos that these people, these marketplaces sell, they'll show the gunman opens the door and they're in, or they'll break through the barricade or whatever. No, it doesn't happen. No. And I have people, and Olga, I think I again told you, I'll play the devil's advocate, because a lot of law enforcement and former law enforcement will say, well, they're sitting ducks that are sitting there waiting to be shot. No shooter has tried to break through a locked door. It takes too long. Of all the, I want to say thousands of school shootings that have gone on, no shooter has tried to break through a locked door. It just takes too long. There was one incident a long time ago on a Native American institution where the individual tried to break through the locked door. He shot it 3 times. That door still wouldn't open. So he decided to break through the window, and he got in that way. So this idea that, oh my gosh, they're just going to walk in and shoot my kids, that's not going to happen. No, they're not sitting ducks. So you keep it as simple as possible, and don't listen to these new technologies and new ways of doing things just because they want to change. They just want to change. It's an emotional kind of knee-jerk reaction to it.
I think they operate under urgency, and there's a lot of emotions and really disturbed psyche involved. So really anything that takes longer, they're not in that state of mind. So I completely understand. But honestly, I would never even think about that, because others would see your solution as inactivity, but it is actually protection. So control is more important than acting and reacting. Right?
You're absolutely correct, because the run, hide, fight model, which was carried over from the corporations for adults, they have a nice video that was done 20 years ago where it shows a man come in all dressed in black and he's shooting people. And the narrator says, if you can run, you run. If you can hide, you hide. If you fight, grab whatever, you fight. Okay, that's fine for adults, not for children. They transferred it over to schools for whatever reason and thinking it was a good solution, and it's not. And there's another marketing company out there called Alice, and Alice training, it's an acronym. It stands for alert. I don't need people to remember this, but it's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, evacuate, whatever. Anyway, that training is actually wrong. It's unsound. It's dangerous. They've actually had lawsuits just for the drills in this type of training and litigation. So you really have to watch out. And I say this as a parent, even though school administrators have to pay attention to this type of training, that they're going to get sued because the training is unsound. They certify people in 2 days. There's no kind of backing in the certification or qualification. Who has liability? You're teaching people, who has the liability, the person teaching it or the person who has to make the decision. Absolutely. And this is where the litigation comes in. So stay away from that kind of stuff. It just keep it as simple as possible. Lock your doors to the classroom, and help is on the way. And the reason I wrote my book, we haven't talked about that. It's called The First 5 Minutes, right after Uvalde. And of course, the media is going to focus on the negative part of Parkland, where the resource officer didn't go in, the negative part of Uvalde, where the police stood outside in the hallway. Obviously, as we know, it's like a 600-page report. There were issues there prior to the police, getting in the hallway. But yes, the police did make a drastic mistake. But I got to tell you, Olga, 99.9% of the police departments know what they're doing, and they're going to do the right thing. So after that disaster, I wrote this book, and it's a guidebook. And I don't want people scared about this. I did not write a 200, 300-page diatribe that's going to sit on a shelf collecting dust. It's 77 pages. You can read it in an hour and a half. Just common sense stuff. You can flip through it and what you need to do. And my thing, whole is keep it simple, just common sense. Just keep that in your mind. This is what I need to do. And that's it. I mean, it's very, very basically pretty simple. And I tell people, look, more than likely, it's not going to happen in your school. It's like being struck by lightning or winning the lottery. But why not be prepared? It doesn't cost you anything to be prepared at all. You don't have to train like every month. You don't have to drill constantly, because after a while, drilling it inside, oh no, another drill. You get tired of that. But you don't have to drill constantly. Just be prepared. That's it. Situational awareness. I know that's a cliche, but just your surroundings and stuff. And I'm very glad that they have started these threat assessment teams, which will get together weekly to talk about certain students that have either made threats or have done something that makes them a little off, whatever it is. Because as you know, Olga, the majority of these shooters are either current students or they're former students. So they're watching. They know what's going on. They plan these months in advance. It's not a one-day thing. I woke up and did it. They plan these months in advance. So it's something, again, that teachers and students just be aware. You're not snitching on anybody. If you say, hey, I think, Johnny, there's something going on with my friend here. Can you find out? Talk to someone you trust. And, you can save a lot of lives.
Absolutely. And you kind of mentioned all the questions I had for you, but I would love to go back. You mentioned really in terms of safety, rather disregarding technological advances and really sticking to the basics, because that has been proven as the right thing, which I want to bring back to your story. Because I think technology played a huge role when you entered the United States Secret Service, right? You mentioned it was under Reagan administration and then through the Obama administration, 24 plus years.
Yes.
So much has changed. Cell phones, internet, social media, we're tracking our devices. Presidents probably got phones too, and can they track their devices? How could you manage the safety through that almost quarter of a decade? What has changed for you?
Well, I tell you what, when we talk about technology, for us I'm going to talk specifically about the White House complex. You've got certain items there, without giving away everything, that yes, technology has helped in certain ways, but you still need humans. You still need the actual presence of the officer. Otherwise, observation-wise, meaning cameras, meaning certain devices, microwaves, whatever. Yes, that has increased our technology-wise, but you still need the actual officers. The gun technology hasn't really changed that much. We're still using dogs. I mean, the whole thing, I remember when I went through the program, our technical security division said, hey, we've got this machine that we can use. It'll help us save having to use dogs. And if we use this machine, they're just as good as a dog. No, there is no machine. It's still, even today, all these years later, there's no machine out there that's better than a dog's nose. There isn't. I don't care what they say. They've done tests on it. A dog's nose is just, they don't even know, how good a dog's nose is. So technology helped a little bit, but not that much overall from when I started to when I ended, because we did change from revolvers to semi-automatics. Mm-hmm. And that's where we're still at today. And that was the only reason for that was because it was more capacity. Well, I didn't think it was easier to shoot, but anyways, it was just the way to go. They wanted to go to semi-automatic weapons. So the weapon technology changed a little bit, but you still need that officer presence there, So, but yeah, I know the talk now is about AI. Everything is AI this and AI that. We're going to have gun technology that's going to show people, God, like out of the movies, where you'll scan somebody to see if they have a weapon. Not only I'm sure it's available, but just the money, the cost of these things. I just read today there was a school, I want to say Tennessee, correct me if I'm wrong. There's a company called Omnalert, and it checks individuals to see if they have a weapon on them. My God, the cost in the millions just for one school to have. I've got 140 schools. Olga, I would get emails weekly from companies saying, "Hey, we got this great app. Can we bring it to your school and show you? Oh, we've got this great program. It'll follow somebody around that's got a weapon. Oh, we've got cameras that'll show this." This was weekly. This was going on, and I hate to use the term. No, I don't hate to use it, but ambulance chaser. When something would happen, the emails would even double. They had a school shooting here, and all of a sudden I'd get more emails from these companies that say they've got the solution. Here's the solution to your school safety problem. No, technology is not the solution. It helps very, very little bit. Do I like cameras? Yes, perfect. You should have cameras, at least in the parking lot, in areas where people are walking through. Inside the school, not so much. Because I tell you what are you watching? Are you watching for kids doing bad things? These kids would learn in 30 seconds where those cameras are pointing. They know every hiding area. They're not naive. And there's no technology out now that will follow a person, even a bad person, through that school. There is no technology out there now. And if there is, it's way too expensive. You're not going to spend money on that. So yes, cameras work. Metal detectors? No. Don't go down the metal detector rabbit hole, because it's just security theater. They look nice. It looks like they're doing something. Olga, if I'm a crazy person, do you think a metal detector is going to stop me from going in and shooting and killing people? No. I'm just going to go in and start shooting people. And if I want to get a gun into that school, how do you think I'm going to get that gun in? There's always a door open. Always. Somebody's going to open that door for you. You'll have a friend inside. You hand him a backpack. He doesn't know what's in the back. Hey, put this in for me, will you, buddy? I'm going to pick it up later. Or you'll have weekend athletic events. They can put that through the school. Open window, whatever. So this idea that this is going to completely stop. And I tell people whenever I go to a school, I'm not going to tell you I'm going to make you 100% prevented. I'm going to make you 100% safe. There's no way you can say something like that. The best thing you can do is have layers of security to slow down that shooter. Slow them down with fencing, with lobby areas, one entrance. Every other door is closed and locked. Classroom doors locked during classroom time. Best defense.
And I think, to your point, yes, the technological advances or technology now gives us more solutions or more an idea of more solutions, but it actually provides more threats, right? I think when it comes to privacy or location targeting, we are sharing it with anybody. And to your point, with any app that comes to mind, they know exactly where we are and what we're doing. Recently, I was talking to somebody, and this lady said that we were trying to figure out when we're going to meet, and she mentioned that she's going to have tennis on Wednesday. Then I opened my phone, and Siri scheduled tennis on Wednesday for me with that woman.
I don't mean to laugh, but my wife has the same issue, because she'll be talking about something, or she'll order something, and all of a sudden Facebook has these ads for what she just ordered. Like, what? How could that happen? And it's constant. You're absolutely right. They find out. Google, Facebook, they find out right away what you're talking about, what you're ordering, and incorporate in your lives. So yeah, I don't want to go down that social media rabbit hole, because I don't think it's good for kids, especially along with cell phones. But anyway, we don't need to go there just yet. I got my own opinion on that. But anyway, all right.
To your point, though, because you took care really of first families, are they allowed to use social media? Is that, or that's a complete taboo?
No, it all depends. We'll have our technical security division. They can have a phone that's encrypted. So as long as it's encrypted, they'd be able to use it. Yeah, they can have a personal device. I'd like to say, as long as it's encrypted. Yeah, that's all. Let's stop
Well,
hacking from getting
the
to it.
time might bring us, first daughter dancing on TikTok soon or something like that. Hopefully not, but
That could be. You never know.
you never know. Exactly. So many changes. But you mentioned your dog, Korak.
Yes.
How did you create that bond? Because you mentioned that he could retire with you or, share the home with you. And there's so many dog lovers or actually people who have pets and struggle to create that bond or even work with pets. Was there perhaps any memory where you kind of managed to get together and really become a team?
It's funny you mentioned that because I remember back in my training, and it took, I think, about 5 weeks, give or take, for you to bond with the dog. And I remember we were sitting outside at our training facility, and we're all with our dogs laying in the grass, just relaxing. And I'm kind of fooling with him, kind of tickling him, just kind of fooling around. And I can't remember exactly, but there was something I did that he didn't like. And he let me know. And I was like, okay, we're not there yet. So, because I've had dogs, it wasn't like my first dog. I mean, I grew up on a farm, so I had dogs before. But that was the great thing about him, is that he would let you know. I mean, not really like attacking me, but he let me know. Don't do that. I don't like that. It's like, okay. So it was a back and forth kind of thing, because obviously being male, number one, there's a male dog. And they would have these different drills we would do where you would stand over the dog. It was kind of this alpha male thing that, and the dog was supposed to be, a beta male. So they had to give up this, personality, basically. They, were under your authority. So, yeah, it was a back and forth, but he would let me know if there were certain things he didn't like. And it was great. It was fun. But to get that bond took a while, because at that time, our program was both bomb detection and handler protection. So not only did we search for bombs, but we also did handler protection. So bite work, where you put the whole suit on. You're suited up with all this stuff head to toe, and here it comes. The dog's going to attack, not your dog, but, you would train with other dogs, and they'd attack you and bite you and all this kind of stuff. And let me tell you, these dogs, they were called Belgian Malinois. We got away from the German Shepherds, even though the Shepherds were great dogs. The problem was the overbreeding. They were having hip dysplasia. And if there's dog owners out there, they know what I'm talking about. There was so much inbreeding in the German Shepherds, it just ruined these dogs with their hips. So they went to the Belgian Malinois, which most police departments you'll see now have them. They're called red dogs, but they're very intelligent, but very excitable. They're just wound up. They're wound really tight. They're a one dog person. I mean, when you bond with them, boom, it is forever. I mean, they do not want to leave your side. But yeah, during some of the moments, you'll know what's going on. But the bond itself, they want you to take that dog home, but they do want to make sure, because this dog can attack and is basically, like they told me, like sending the bullet out there. They can kill somebody. So they want to make sure you can control that dog. If something does happen, you can get that dog off. And once that happens, then you can take him home. Olga, this dog was brought up in a kennel. So at first, a lot of the canine guys were like, oh no, you're going to put him out in a kennel outside. Or I'm living home alone. What? I'm going to sit in the house and put the dog out in the kennel. I'm like, oh, I want him in the house. They're like, uh-oh, just watch out. They've never seen a TV, a dishwasher, nothing. They live in the kennel their whole lives. So I bring him home. I had and I'll tell you a story. It's comical, but it's not right. When he was in the kennel, when he would do his business, okay, he would step in it and paint the walls. So every day I would come in, and you're supposed to take care of your dog the entire time. Every day I would come into my kennel, and the other canine guys would go, Dan, he did it again. Get the bucket. I got to clean everything for this dog. I'm thinking, I'm going to bring this dog home. He's stepping in his own, stuff. What the heck? I was scared. So I bring him home, and, obviously he checked out the entire area. Do you know, Olga, he never did anything in the house. Never, unless he was sick. Never did anything. He was a great house dog. He didn't do anything. I mean, he would get nervous if the washing machine went on or something, odd sounds. but he got used to it. And I had a small house. It was just a 2-bedroom house. So yeah, that bond. I'll tell you one other story. One of the other canine guys had same dog, same Belgian Malinois, and he told me the story. He brought the dog home after 5 or 6 weeks. He brings the dog home. All right, the family wants to go out to dinner. Okay, well, leave the dog in the house. We'll be fine. As they go out to dinner, the dog runs upstairs to the second floor window where he can see the handler outside and decides, you're not leaving without me. Jumps through that second door window, lands on the lawn, and goes, where do you think you're going? So like, oh my God. So these dogs, they don't want, they are there to protect you. And I noticed that a lot. My dog would get very anxious if he wasn't there to take care of me. I injured my knee in a motorcycle accident. And I'll never forget, I came home on crutches. And my dog twice, I've only seen it twice, where the hair on his back raised up. And as soon as he saw me in crutches, the hair on his back raised up like, oh my God, what's wrong with you? Are you okay? And it's, sorry, even now it makes me emotional. But they care a lot. Then I know dog owners out there, they know how I'm feeling.
It's the best friend and best weapon and everything at once. I think it's, and I'm so happy that we're talking about it because, so many people just talk about their work without mentioning the specifics and the humanity, the human aspect of this. Because we always say, it takes a special person to be somebody great. It takes the real person to be somebody great and somebody who can bond with others. Because it's a team effort. Small team, larger team, all is a team effort. Right. I have a question because we mentioned that in introduction that you have a degree in history.
Yes.
And perhaps there's some boys and girls who are wanting to go and actually are very interested in history, and history came up in the news in weird ways lately. So were there any moments where you really used your knowledge, or perhaps any unexpected situations where others benefited from your expertise?
I'm glad you mentioned that. I was very fortunate when I worked at the White House. They actually have historical tours that are given by the armed officers to go through the White House and give these tours. And when I first got to the White House, I was a little bit interested in history. I mean, I always was, but I didn't really delve into it. And they worked day work, meaning I hated to get up in the morning, hated it. But they worked on day work. They start at like 7 in the morning and they go all the way through all day. And they're on the floor of the White House. And I had a gentleman, he said to me, one of the officers says, hey, why don't you try out for tours? I said, oh my God, no, I hate to get up in the morning. I don't think I want to do that. He says, no, go through the training. At least go through the training, he says, and then, you can try later on. Once you have the training, it'll always be there. So it's 3 weeks. 3 weeks you got to go through and learn every bit of that White House during the tour, all the history, the paintings, the furniture, the history of the presidents, the whole thing. You need to know everything about that. And you go through and it's intense. And you have to talk in front of an audience. So you can't be shy about that, And I went through the 3 weeks, and on my second week, I was doing really well. I was pounding. I had it down. And my trainer would go, Dan, he said, you said and like 200 times. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yep. He says, at least 200 times you're and I'm like, no, you don't realize it. He goes, I can play the tape. He says, I tape recorded it. I'm like, no, it's all right. He says, I tell you what, I'm going to stand in the background, and every time you say or I'm going to click my pen. So here I go through the tour, and I hear click, 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 click. I'm like, oh. But it trained me. I got away from the uhs and the ums, and I got through it without hardly any clicks. And it was tough but I enjoyed it. And when you enjoy a subject and here you are in history, you're a part of history, you're in the White House, for gosh sakes. And it was just really exciting time because you would get people that were really interested and you would lock in on them and they would ask you all these questions at the end. And we got to go to all the parties and all the announcements and all the bill signings. It was just an amazing time. Now, you're standing a lot. You're on that marble the entire time. but I wouldn't. I wish I could still do it. And we asked. I said, once we retire, can we do that? Oh no, it's only for active duty. Blah blah blah. Whatever. So, but that's what interests me in history. And I said, I checked with the University of Maryland, where I got my history degree online, and I did it. Yeah, I did it all online and did very well. But yeah, that's what got me interested. But even today, I'm still interested in that type of history, just American history. I'm very proud to be an American, and I was lucky enough to give tours of the West Wing where the public doesn't get to see. But because of my position, and because anytime a diplomat or a congressman would ask for someone to go through the West Wing, they picked me. I'm like, okay, great. I felt good to go through. I mean, I gave tours to congressmen and diplomats. I'll never forget the ambassador from Japan came in and wanted a tour, and of course, the Asian people, Japanese, have to give you a gift. I'm like, oh no. And I say that because there's certain restrictions on us receiving gifts. There's a certain number. So I had to go through this whole process because I couldn't refuse it. He would take it as, it would just, he wouldn't take it right if I didn't accept the gift. I had to go through a process. But anyway, it was just a great time. And I got to do, I'm sure you've heard of the Make-A-Wish Foundation.
Yeah.
For these children that are very ill, and they wanted to go to a tour of the West Wing. They would bring them up with the motorcycles and the limo, and they saw the dogs and all this stuff and the lights and sirens, and they come through and they got to see the Oval Office and cabinet room, and it was just a great time. It just made you feel really good that you can do this for the kids and their family. So yeah, I had some really great experiences. There was an agent. I have to tell you this story. There's an agent. He was a supervisor, so he was over me. Not that that means anything, because I would have done it anyways. But his dad was a World War II veteran. His dad was probably in his 90s, even at that time. And he said, Dan, he says, my dad has never talked about his war experiences. It's just, I guess, too painful. So we go in, and whole family, and I remember he was in a wheelchair, and we come up and we did the Oval Office, and I'm telling him about the Oval Office and all the history and stuff. And as I'm telling it, I know this guy and what he's been through, and especially the World War II veterans, especially because my dad he didn't get to go, but he was that generation. And I'm telling this story, and all of a sudden I'm starting to tear up. And everybody around me is starting to tear up. I'm like, oh my God, I got to get through this. And I'm talking about the desk and all this other stuff. Anyway, I get through it. We go through the whole thing. They thank me. 2 days later, he sends me an email. He says, Dan, you're not going to believe this. He says, my dad started talking about his experiences in the war. I was like, oh my God. So I tell you, I had times where it just made you really feel good. So I'm very proud of what I did. And, and I know we transferred over to school safety, but even that, I'm very proud of what I did, because I tell you, I've had kids, I'll go to these drills, and we'll run a drill, an active shooter drill. And I love doing the ones in elementary school, because these kids, they're just, innocent. They're not naive, but they're innocent, and they want to listen to their teacher, and they want to do the right thing. And we'll run the drill, and they lock the door, and they'll sit quietly. Or I've had kids even go into closets and bathrooms and lock the door. And at the end of the drill, I'll go through with the teachers and principals, and we'll unlock the door, because you need a key to unlock. You're not going to open the door. And these kids will come out, and they're all smiles on their faces. And I'm like, you guys did a great job. You get a 5 gold star. I said, we're putting gold stars on everybody. And they're beaming. They're so happy that they did this great thing. And it's just like, it makes you feel so good. And it's just that made it all worthwhile to do that kind of stuff. So I still enjoy it. Even, I started because now, oh my gosh, it's now more than 5 or 6 years ago. My son was in school. So that obviously was my passion for doing this, because of my son, but also just because of these little kids, even middle and high school, but just, I concentrated on elementary school kids just because there's so many of them. We had more elementary schools than middle or high schools. So it was very rewarding. I have to say that, even though I left, I didn't leave on bad terms. I just left because Florida decided they're going to have the local police or the local county police take over school safety. And I disagreed with that, even though I'm former law enforcement. But Olga, law enforcement is reactive. They're not proactive. They don't have the time to do that. I need them to react. They just don't have the time to go and train and be proactive. So I disagreed with it, and I left and then just started doing this. So that's okay. I still enjoy it. I still like to get the word out.
Absolutely. And I want to remind our audience that we have received over 100 Q&A questions from you guys. So Dan will answer a few. He will pick a few in just a bit. So we are transitioning to the main subject why we're here. You already, because my next question was what prompted you to make it your life's work or really dedicate your life to protecting children. Was there perhaps, any moment or any situation where you said, it's not just a job, it actually has more meaning to me as a person, given my background, and I really want to achieve something before I leave this position?
Yes, absolutely. Couple things. One was the classroom door locks. I advocated for that for years, and I understand teachers would say, oh my gosh, no, I can't keep the door locked because kids want to go to the bathroom and need a pass to go here, or they want to go there, and I have to get up and open the door constantly. I said, you know what, tough. Keep the door locked during classroom time because you just saved a step if you have to go into some kind of lockdown. So you keep the door locked. And that way, you only have a few other steps to go and you're good. The other thing was we had a headquarters where I worked, and the headquarters was, I want to say 4 floors. I think it was a lot of employees, and they had never run an active shooter drill. And I thought this is crazy. You have to at least train these people to find out what they need to do and find out where they need to go, because it's just not schools. I mean, there's crazy people out there that have issues with their employer as an employee. Maybe they got fired or whatever was going on. So that was an accomplishment. And boy, did that take some pulling some teeth. But they did it. So I was very happy about that. So yes, there were certain things that I accomplished that made me feel better that, hey, at least I left it in good hands. I disagreed with the police taking over, but that was out of my hands. It was out of my control. Things I could control. Yeah, I was very happy with how it turned out.
I have a bit of experience with government and big agencies. And this is a question which is really coming from me, given your story. It is very frustrating to achieve something, right? In a big organization where there's so many, you have to go through so many no's and maybes to get to maybe even to a maybe or to a yes. So what was more frustrating to get through? Was the your first part of your journey as United States Secret Service agent, or the school system? Because it's a lot of frustration. It's a lot of sleepless nights. It's a lot of talking and not acting. And I really admire you because your whole life is in that. So honestly,
I don't know. You know what? It's funny. I spent more years with the Secret Service, so there were a few more frustrations there. The thing you learn, though, I said the nice thing is that whatever position you're in, it's going to change. Every year we would have something called the pick, which was you got to pick different days off because you had more seniority, or you were able to be assigned somewhere else, or different assignments you could pick for. There were other branches you could pick for. So even if you were in like the worst position, you knew within a year, just stick it out for a year. Even if you hated it, you're going to get through it. Things will change in another year. Now, the other thing was, and you probably had the same thing, you had supervisors. Some you get along with. Some you're like, oh my God, I can't stand this person. And they probably couldn't stand you either. And there were issues that came up like that, but that's every job. Only on this job, I had 1 year, Olga. I think I had like 10 different evaluators within 1 year that were evaluating me. I was like, this guy would leave, or that guy. I was like, oh my God. So it was a constant rollover. Probably the biggest frustration on the job was just we didn't have enough personnel. And the thing with us was it wasn't like you could leave. You could, if you took leave, if you got sick leave, if you took leave, your position wasn't like a desk that would stay empty and come back and your work would be there. We were different. We had posts we had to cover. So it basically was just, filling a post. I mean, if someone wasn't there, you had to fill that post. So you would have your days off canceled. I mean, there were a couple months where we didn't have a day off for 2 months. It's like, what? And then they switched it over and said, well, we'll try to help out by putting you on 12-hour shifts. And then you still couldn't get your days off. So mentally fatiguing, and the quality of life just went right down. And we were like, oh my God, you either got to hire some more people or do something. But something would happen. And then you create more posts. And we would expand even more because some incident or some terrorist act would happen. Oh my gosh, we got to create more. And we didn't have enough personnel. So we were struggling. It kind of like they say, you're spinning your wheels. And we just, not to say we were abused, but it just felt kind of like that because you couldn't get a day off. So that dragged on you. It just was a daily grind to go through and not look forward to, hey, I know my days off are coming up. I get a couple days off. And all of a sudden you'd get the call. Nope, you're canceled. You got to come in. So that hurt. And my family didn't understand. They'd say, well, when you're coming up to see us? When I said, I couldn't get leave. You couldn't get a day off. So they didn't understand holidays. What do you mean you have to work Christmas? What do you mean you have to work 4th of July? All this kind of stuff. Like, that's the way it works in the government. When you're essential personnel, someone has to be there. It's 24/7. So much more frustrating on Secret Service than with the school system. The school system was basically a revelation to me because I was it. I was the only one on doing the job. So if I wasn't there, well, then it didn't get done that day, but I was eventually going to be back. So there was no such thing as, your day off being canceled or you have to work extra shifts. It was I was really left alone, which I really liked. I had a boss that said, look, you're doing a great job. The teachers like you. The principals like you. Keep doing what you're doing. So if there were days where I wanted to lay back, I could do that. If there were days where I wanted to do a little extra, because at night, when most of these parents could meet with the teachers, that's when I went out at night. And it's kind of like I would just make it up the next day. I was just left alone, which was nice. And the other thing was I was on salary, so I didn't have to punch a clock or anything like that, so I was getting paid no matter what. But I didn't abuse it. I wasn't, not to be humble or anything, but I was brought up differently. I wasn't there to abuse the system. I was there to do a job. And, I wanted to talk to these people. In fact, I wanted help. That was the thing. It was funny with the Secret Service. It was different because it was just constant. You were just working constantly. With the school system, I wanted extra help. I wanted people to, go to these meetings or to these drills when I couldn't make it and I had to go to another drill. So I was a one-man team. So that was frustrating on that end. And I didn't have autonomy with the school system. I couldn't say, hey, you got to fix this door like today. I didn't have that kind of a
slow motion process.
Yeah, I had to go through a boss who went through another boss. So that was the frustrating part there. But I still had a great time, and I had great relationships with the teachers and principals with the school system.
It is amazing. It's really two kind of sides of the coin, right? Because one thing is protecting from people, one is really protecting people from something, right? So really amazing. It's such a different side of the story, and really experiencing both sides is tremendous. I really would love to come to Q&A. And you will be picking the questions. And we received, once again, over 100 questions. A lot of questions were funny. A lot of questions, of course, about Secret Service. But let's start with the school system, because I think those questions are urgent. We have heard from teachers. We've heard from parents. We've heard from grandparents. We've heard from people who are educators at universities and so on and so forth. So let's pick a question. Tell me which one. I'll read it up for you.
I think we were going to start with 12.
What can we as a society do to help schools?
I tell you what, it's very important for the community, not only for parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts, but what I'd say to parents, because I have a lot of parents say, well, there's nothing I can do. Yes, there is. You can definitely go to a school board. You can go to a school board meeting. I understand you only get 3 minutes. You can read a page and a half. I've done it. You can read a page and a half, get it done, get your point out there. If they do not want to listen to you, that's when you start making phone calls, emails to your legislatures saying, look, this is what's going on. And I'm telling you, we've seen it with the pandemic, with all the stuff going on. When parents get together, schools listen. So it's probably better to get together as a group. If you have other parents that have the same concerns going, I don't like what they're doing. My child told me they're doing this. I don't like this. And you'll get like-minded parents saying the same thing. Yeah, I don't want my children learning this other stuff either. I want them running out of a classroom. I don't want them attacking a gunman. So it is about the community. And I haven't really mentioned churches that much. I mean, I know I'm down here in Florida. It is more of I would say, a church-going community, maybe than other places. But I think that's another place to start with as a community and talk amongst church members. And because there are private schools, there are church schools, not just public schools. And if the same thing is happening, find out again how they're doing their emergency drills. Because these crazy gunmen, it doesn't matter what kind of school it is. It doesn't. They just, whatever, they're crazy. They're gonna pick small children to shoot at for whatever reason. They're insane. So that what church community get together with other parents to find out what's the best way to handle this and use your power as a parent to push it forward.
Which one next?
Let's go with 11.
11. Okay. Are there any differences between states as to how they handle school emergency situations, or is there one protocol?
I'm going to combine these because there was another question here about possibly having the federal government take over school safety. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, I don't want to see that at all. The federal government had nothing to do with school safety. It should be up to the states, local communities, and the counties. Now, my state of Florida, I want to say, fortunately, the legislatures did pass a bill that said, look, we need armed school resource officers in every one of our schools. I'm fortunate in the county I'm in, we do have armed school resource officers in the schools, and they're just one of the greatest tools that we can have. They are an advocate. They are there for parents, students, teachers. That's what they're there for. Now, I get pushback because a lot of students will say, look, I don't want law enforcement in my school. They're going to arrest me. They're not there to do that. And they're also not there to break up fights or this other stuff. That's up to the school. They're there just to protect you if something bad happens. That's all. I mean, the schools sometimes abuse them by using them. Hey, I've got a problem with a student officer. Come on over here and take care of it. No, that's not their job. So watch out for that. But yes, each state has just a different aspect of how they handle this. And I want to really stay away from the gun control or the weapons issue. But I know Utah and Texas have started a program of having armed teachers.
Yeah,
I'm on the shelf. I'm on the board with that. It's a balancing act. That in some respects I agree with it, and in other respects I don't agree with it. But so far, I'd really like to see the data on how long it's been in place and what they're doing with it. Because I agree, there are former law enforcement, there's former military that would like, if they're teachers, to have that option to protect themselves and their students. I understand that, but there's other variables there. If something bad happens and I'm a law enforcement person and I see someone with a gun, I have no idea if they're a good guy or a bad guy. So that's a real,
right.
That's a tricky subject. But to answer the question, yes, different states, there's no one protocol that everyone follows. I don't think there should be. Every school is different. Every county, state is different on how they're going to run it. And most of them pick the right stuff. However, like I mentioned, a lot of them switch over to this run, hide, fight and this Alice because it's marketed. They're getting bullied.
Commercialized, yeah.
They're getting pushed into this going, hey, we got a program for you. It'll take a couple days. We'll give you a couple hours training and you're good to go. No. Watch out for that. And a lot of times they won't tell parents. That's why I tell parents to talk to your kids. Find out what's going on because I'm a parent. Look, most parents, and I've talked to them on podcasts, say, look, I trust the school. I drop my kid off. They're safe. They come home. No, they're not. Not now. It's the way these things have changed. Find out. Just ask your kid, what's going on in the school with these drills? Because if something bad happens, that's you need to know. You need to know what they're doing with your children. The thing is number 14.
Okay, so as a teacher, how can I educate myself and my colleagues to be most efficient in such emergencies?
I got the complaint from teachers that, look, we agree with you. It's common sense to do what we're doing. However, we have bosses that are telling us to do it a certain way. I know a lot of schools will give teachers options, which to me is just kind of crazy, because as a teacher going, oh my God, I didn't sign up for this. I signed up to be a teacher. I didn't sign up to be some paramilitary person. But they'll give teachers options. They'll say to them, it's up to you to decide whether to stay in the classroom with your children or take everybody and run. And if I'm a teacher, I'm telling you, Olga, just comments. If I'm a teacher without a weapon, forget about me in the Secret Service. If I'm a teacher and I hear gunshots and they go into a lockdown, and there should be an announcement of a lockdown, I'm staying in that classroom. I don't care if somebody tells me, I know where the gunman is. He's in classroom 20, which could be halfway across the campus. I'm still not going anywhere. I'm not going to depend on someone else telling me that unless I see that gunman way across campus, I'm not leaving that room. Yeah. What for? I have no idea, because you go out to the danger zone, and it is a danger zone. You're leaving a perfectly safe classroom to run outside to some designated point, I guess, but I got 25 or 30 kids. I got to gather them all up. And you know what, Olga? I guarantee you a quarter of those kids are going to go, I'm not going anywhere. My daddy said to stay in the classroom, or they freeze. They may freeze. And you have adults that may freeze and just not do anything. I mean, look at 9/11, the towers. You had a whole bunch of people that just froze, that just wouldn't do anything. They forgot their name. They forgot what day it was. This is a situation where you think you have the training. I went through 24 years of this. I had to qualify with my weapon every month. So I had that muscle memory. I had that implicit memory to do this as rote, as if I'm not even thinking. You're going to tell a teacher, I'm going to give you an hour and a half of training, and something's going to happen in 6 months, and you're supposed to snap your fingers and do the perfect thing? No. It's impossible. You would have to train constantly for years to be some kind of law enforcement paramilitary person that's going to know what to do, and especially children. You're not going to train children to fight someone or throw something at someone in an hour and a half. It's impossible. Think about how terrified they are. The worst situation they're going to face in their entire lives, and now they're going to do this perfect thing and hopefully save themselves when they could absolutely stay in that classroom where no shooter's ever broken through that door. Wait for the good guys. They're coming. Literally, unless you're in some rural area where they're 15 minutes away, literally, they're going to be there. Because I tell you what, if you've got a school resource officer, he is already there and he's going. They're not waiting. They're not waiting for someone else. They're trained to go, even if it's just one person. So you're already ahead of the game. If you got that door locked and you got a school resource officer. If you don't, the police are literally 3 to 5 minutes away. I mean, you're going to be okay. It's going to be terrifying. I get it. You're sitting there thinking you're not doing anything. You feel helpless. I've had principals in tears because they thought they needed to go out and help their teachers lock their doors. And I said, you're okay. You're doing this during a drill, but if a real situation, you're going to stay in the classroom or in your office. No. I'm going to go out and make sure. No, then you're not going to make it home alive. Look what happened in Sandy Hook. That principal went out and challenged that shooter, dead. Parkland had a gym teacher, went out and challenged the shooter. He got killed. Nashville, principal killed. Iowa, principal killed. You're not going to go out and talk to someone with a gun and think they're going to just give up. They're not. Their mindset is way beyond insanity. They're already at the end. They're either killing themselves, or it's very rare that they give up, or being shot by a police officer. So be very careful of the type of training that has children run out of a classroom or fight or throw things at a gunman. It's just beyond common sense. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. I get really passionate about it. I can't stop. Oh, I get very angry when things like this happen, and you're talking about children. You're not talking about adults. These are little children that you're going to have fight some person with a gun. It's just insane. It's not right.
No, and as they say, common sense is not that common. That's a good sample for this one.
If you want to ask one about the Secret Service, you pick one.
How would Secret Service protect former president if he were to be sent to prison?
That was an excellent question. I have never gotten that question before. I'm sure some of the agents that protect the former president have thought about that kind of thing. It's unknown territory. It's something that is just, you wouldn't think would ever happen, but it's possible. It could happen. And this is only, again, my opinion. How the law would work, I don't know. I don't want to say, well, the law works this way. They would still have to protect him. However, if he's in prison, he's obviously very protected. He would obviously be in solitary confinement, away from other prisoners. Basically, I'm sure they would have him isolated from everyone. They would work something out, I believe, with the Bureau of Prisons, where you would have Secret Service personnel there. Because I tell you, the one thing that to me is very scary, if that did happen, that there would be a better possibility of someone getting to that former president, whether it's through poisoning them, whether it's through hurting them, assaulting them. There's more of a possibility to me, I think, than when they're out, when it can be controlled by the Secret Service. Because who's serving him the food? It's going to be the Bureau of Prisons. It's not going to be his own chef. It's not going to be his own personal person that's going to check the food that, he's possibly being poisoned. So is there a better chance of someone getting to him when he's in prison? Yeah, I think that's better, because the Secret Service wouldn't have that kind of control. Now, I'm sure they would push that because they're a very strong agency, and they would have the backing of Homeland Security to say, this is what we need. And they would make a proposal saying, this is how we want to do it. And it's going to be up to the Department of Justice or Bureau of Prisons or Homeland Security to say, yes, no, check it all off, or no on this one. So that is a great question. And the logistics of it, how the law would work, boy, it'll all be up in there in the media. I'm sure it'd be all over that. But yeah, I'm sure the Secret Service, I guarantee you, Olga, they already have a plan. They already have a plan. They think that far ahead. If this happens, this is what we need to do. Because obviously, being in the Secret Service, we would plan months in advance, just when the president would travel out of town or out of the country. There's months in advance you're planning all this stuff. So they've got a plan in place. And again, it's just my opinion how they would work this out with the government if that did happen. But yeah, it's an interesting question. Great question.
I have really quick one. How accurate was the Clint Eastwood movie In the Line of Fire?
I love Clint Eastwood. Love the guy. And it was nice that they had every entity. They had K-9, they had a technical security division, they had counter snipers on the roofs. They had every entity in there. However, when you watch it, it got kind of comical because just the procedures that they did in the movie, you pick out certain things, especially the dogs. I mean, they use German Shepherds, and these Shepherds are just kind of, very intelligent, but they're very slow and methodical. And it's like, no, if they saw Belgian Malinois work, which they work very well, but they're very fast and very excited to do what they do. So that was one big difference, because at the time I was in K-9. The other thing was the communication with the counter snipers, having an agent telling them what to do, and that wouldn't happen at all. They're on their own. They would do what they needed to do. They don't need direction from anyone. And the other sort of thing was, I think there was a scene in there where they were sealing manhole covers in the street, and it was like, oh my God, no, we don't do stuff like that. So there's certain things that you pick up, like, no, that didn't work. And then when he was chasing the bad guy, they weren't communicating with anybody. They had radios. All they had to do was communicate and tell the other police officers, use the radio. He's down this street. He's on that roof, whatever. No, they're on their own. They're just going there being the heroes, and all you had to do is get on the radio and tell them what was going on. So yeah, accuracy wise, the neat thing that I thought was probably the most accurate is when Clint Eastwood took the bullet and the agents grabbed the president. And remember, they went through the kitchen, they went under the tunnel, and they jumped in the cars, and everybody takes off. That was spot on. That's what would happen. They would grab him right away and throw him. I mean, literally grab him and run as fast as possible, throw him in the car, and here we go. And that's the same thing they did with Reagan at the Hinckley Hotel when Reagan got shot. Grab him, throw him in the car, boom, and they're gone. And it wasn't until, I don't know how many minutes it was, but the president himself was starting to cough, and then they noticed blood. because they weren't going directly to the hospital. They didn't think he got shot. It wasn't until he noticed he had a spot of blood, then boom, they went, right to the hospital and he took a bullet. But yeah, that in that movie, that was probably for me kind of the neat part where they just grab him, they run, jumped in the cars, and boom, they're gone. That was kind of cool.
Some things were correct. Some things were correct. A very quick one, very last one. And I must say, we have received a lot of questions that are personal in terms of how you protected first families, whether you had bonds with them. I don't want to really dive into it because it's your personal life, and I don't want you to reveal things that are really yours to keep. And last one, what is training like before your first official day as a Secret Service agent? I think so many people dream to become one. Can they make it through it?
Yeah. We all go through the same training. I was part of the uniform division, which, to explain the uniform division, we actually wear uniforms, but we had dual powers, which I thought was kind of neat. That's why I stayed with them. We could arrest someone for threatening the president, but I also could arrest someone for assault. And the other nice thing about that, we had all the specialized divisions. We had K-9, we had counter snipers, we had our ERT SWAT team. We had the motorcade support, the motorcycles. So we had all the specialized units, and we have our firearms instructors, all with the uniform division. So I thought that was just a better place to go, even though I had my education, and I could stay in Washington, D.C. That was kind of a neat thing. But the training itself, we go down. When I went down, there's two different divisions now. There's one in Arizona, you can train there, or down in Georgia at the FLETC. That's where I went, down in Georgia. And we trained with other agencies, with the Marshals, with Capitol Police, with Secret Service. And it was, well, I want to say because I was older, I wasn't as best shape if I was a lot younger. But yeah, physically, mentally, the shooting, you do a lot of that stuff. And if you like that, fine. It was perfect. Training for me was just something I wanted to get through. I had already been through college. I already done the jobs. So it was just something for me to get through. It wasn't something I enjoyed and, had, go out, drinking every night. I mean, the younger guys, yeah, I mean, I was back studying and stuff, to me, it wasn't difficult. It was just something that in my mind, I just wanted to get through this. So yeah, there was a lot of physical, mental, the test, you have to learn the Constitution, what's, lawful arrests, all that kind of stuff. And then the shooting, and then your PTing, physical training, and then you got to go through the tactics where, you're attacking each other and doing the fights and stuff. So yeah, you're living in a dorm, with other guys, you're eating, and other guys and women, excuse me. So it was okay. Once you got back, this is just Secret Service. I don't know about the other agencies. You went down to Georgia, and I want to say, I can't, it might have been 12 weeks, might have been 14 weeks. Then you come back to the facility at Secret Service out in Beltsville, Maryland, and you go through their training, okay? And they'll tell you, look, you went through that training down there in Georgia. Now you're going to get the real stuff with the Secret Service. And now here's more training, the Secret Service way, which is more classrooms, more shooting with different weapons, more physical, tactics. So yeah, it's a lot. And then you get the scenarios, and they give you the scenarios, and the scenarios, you'll go with a partner, and you'll have different scenarios. You'll have one where a person will come bringing flowers into the White House, and come to find out he's talking to you, and he says, oh yeah, he says, whenever I come into DC, he says, I bring a gun with me, but I left it in my truck, and I'm here delivering flowers. And you're supposed to, by their conversation, a red flag's supposed to come up going, wait, what did you say? There's a gun in your vehicle? You're supposed to key in on that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So the scenarios worked really well. They're kind of fun, but there's also, you're under pressure to do the right thing because you don't want to get shot. I mean, it's all play stuff, but and you're tested constantly. They do this little trick where they'll say to you, okay, it's lunchtime. Go in the cafeteria and have their lunch. And you're sitting there eating lunch, and all of a sudden these guys come in all masked up, and they grab some hostages and stuff, with real weapons and stuff. And you're like, is this for real or what? Nope, you're being tested. What are you going to do? So that was the one thing that, they try to trick you, but you're tested all the time, and you're always under observation. They're always watching you. What are you doing? How are you reacting? What is your attitude? Are you being a jerk? Are you mature? Are you taking this seriously? And yeah, I'm telling you, and that's again, my personal opinion, the best training of any agency. I still believe we are the top agency of any government agency out there. We are. And I think that still speaks the truth to our training and how we handle things.
Amazing. Well, I can listen to you for hours, but I'm sure you have things to do. So I'm very honored to talk to you. And last thing, let's talk about your book. Where can people find it? By the way, you can find a direct link in the description of this episode, whether you're watching, listening, or you're on social media. Go to our link in bio. It's everywhere where you can purchase the book. So few things. This is a manual. It's not too long. You shared before. It's really for parents, for teachers, for everybody who needs to know how to act and protect kids at school, right?
Exactly. Yes, it's a guidebook. Yes, like I said, 77 pages long. Won't take you very long to read it. A lot of good information. There's also, I forgot to mention, I'm sorry, and I'll show it, even though I don't know if people see it. There's, you can download this card. I have it laminated, but it's a quick reference card. And a lot of teachers will have a lanyard with their ID on it or with a copy of card, and it just gives you information in case you forget something. Let's say there's a gunman there and you have the door locked, but you start doing things like, oh my gosh, I must have forgot something. And you quickly look at the card going, yeah, I forgot to turn the lights off. So it's just something again. And the reason I came up with this, I have someone who's a doctor in the emergency room. And she goes, oh yeah. She says, we have those cards all the time. She says, because I don't know all the colors. She said, they told me a cold purple the other day. I didn't know what that was. I had to look it up on the card. So it's something, again, a quick reference card. It's in the book. You can download it and laminate it if you want. And it's just something that, again, it's because no one knows how they're going to react in an emergency. Even I don't know. I mean, I've been trained on certain emergencies, but there's certain things that I don't know what I'm going to do. So it's just, again, a quick reference card if you forget something during a lockdown or any emergency. But that's in the book. The book's on Amazon. You type in the first 5 minutes. It should come up in one of your searches. Again, I didn't come on here to sell a book, Olga. It's great if people buy it, but it's more about the message and awareness. And I have to leave you with two things that I always say on every podcast, two things I try to remind people. Number one is keep yourself safe. Always. Keep yourself safe first. It's just like when that oxygen mask drops down from the plane. They tell you put the oxygen mask on yourself, then you can help a child or an elderly person. So if you're in an emergency situation, you keep yourself safe first, and you're going to be able to save other people. Secondly, armed school resource officers. The best thing we've got out there for any school. Always advocate for a school resource officer that's armed. They are well trained. They're an advocate for students and teachers. They are there to keep your children safe. If they can afford it in the budget, forget about metal detectors and all this other stuff. Get armed school resource officers in your schools.
Amazing. Thank you so much. This is amazing. I'm really grateful for talking to you. You're always welcome to come back to continue this conversation. I'm sure we're going to get 100 more questions, if not more. So a lot of topics to discuss. Thank you so much, Dan, and everybody. Also, you can connect with Dan Dluzneski on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and also follow First 5 Minutes on Facebook. I followed your page yesterday. I fell in love with it. You share so many videos, all the podcasts you're on, but also your own series where you talk about things. I think I watched the video with the card because that looked familiar. So go and follow. What we can do is support and really make sure we learn from the amazing people. So Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you, Welda. Appreciate it. Once again, thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much for watching this interview. As you see, it takes real humans to achieve extraordinary results. And the intention behind this interview series is to broaden your horizon and show you what is possible. Please make sure to share this video with your friends and family. The more the merrier. Make sure to connect with Daniel Dluzneski and learn from him, because we always want to learn from the very best. Thank you so much, and see you back on Honest Podcast.